There is an ongoing race that not too many people are paying attention to, and it is the race to become the worst governor in America. Last week, we told you about Pennsylvania Governor Tom Corbett's decision to cut almost $1 billion from his state's education budget last year, which forced the city of Philadelphia to close 23 schools. Then there was Michigan Governor Rick Snyder getting him to release state funds last month so the Buena Vista School District could reopen was like pulling teeth. Well, Florida Governor Rick Scott made a really big move on Friday, back into contention for worst governor in America by signing two terrible bills into law. There's the bill that blocked local municipalities from putting forth paid sick leave legislation. By signing it, Scott rendered moot a potential 2014 vote in Orange County over whether to require that many businesses offer paid sick leave to workers. Or, in other words, with the stroke of his pen, Rick Scott delivered the kill shot to the paid sick leave proposal that would have forced companies with more than 15 employees to provide workers with, quote, 1 hour of sick time for every 37 hours they work, to a maximum of 56 hours annually. Instead, Rick Scott sided with the likes of Walt Disney, Darden Restaurants, the folks who own Olive Garden and Red Lobster, and the Florida Chamber of Commerce. Because as Scott sees it, the bill is essential to ensuring a business-friendly environment that supports job creation. But according to a study done by the Drum Major Institute for Public Policy, since San Francisco became the first city in the country to implement a paid sick leave law, job growth there has consistently been higher than in neighboring counties without such a law. The other bill Governor Rick Scott signed into law on Friday is called the Timely Justice Act of 2013. And what it does is add a ticking clock to the execution process, forcing the governor to sign death warrants within 30 days of a review of a capital conviction by the state Supreme Court. And the state would be required to execute the defendant within 180 days of the warrant. Florida, a state which leads the country in death row inmates who were exonerated or later acquitted after a retrial, with 24 such cases, has now increased its chances of executing an innocent person. Seth Penelver was on Florida's death row for 13 of his 18 years behind bars for a crime he did not commit. He was exonerated in December.
God forbid I was still there and this law would have came to effect, me actually coming to death row on a new sentence, I'd probably be dead.
Joining me now is Martin McLean, a capital defense attorney who represents inmates on death row. Martin, can you explain to me what the impetus is for this legislation? Many states in the union are going in the opposite direction towards fewer executions. What is going on in Florida that the governor is signing this bill?
I'm not exactly sure what caused the legislature this year to decide this was such a big problem. Perhaps more than anything, it's politics. I mean, I think that there were legislators who felt that this would be a way to make a name for themselves, and they pushed this legislation. It certainly wasn't the court's idea. To some extent, it's really trying to strip the court of some of its power, and also the governor. It's really the legislature trying to get into the death business.
You know, you hear a lot about how long the appeals process for the death penalty takes. And in some ways, often people who want to abolish the death penalty will use as an argument for the inefficiency of it. So what's wrong with trying to expedite this process? Why is this a bad idea in Florida?
Well, the thing to keep in mind is really the death penalty is a government program. It's it's like the Internal Revenue Service, Social Security, Medicare. It's a government program by which the government has the power to execute a citizen. And what we know from what's happened in the past 20 years, I worked on two cases in the early, in 2000 and 2001, where I actually got to walk with two individuals off of death row, Juan Melendez and Rudolph Holton. Juan Melendez had been on death row for 17 years. We walked out the front door. He was a free man. He was exonerated after 17 years. Rudolph Holton, the same thing after 16 years. We know this happens, and we know that there's been mistakes made. We know now with DNA evidence, there keeps being advancements in DNA. You can get better results now than you could before. We also know that the FBI has come forward and acknowledged that they've made mistakes in the past. They had bullet lead testimony that was given in the case that I'm handling, where they matched a bullet with the victim to a box of bullets the defendant had access to, and said, well, this can't be a coincidence, he must have done it. And now the FBI has acknowledged that there's no science behind that evidence. There's also the same thing going on with hair evidence, where they match a hair and they say it's microscopically similar to the hair found with the victim, so the defendant must have done it. And now that's under review. So science keeps advancing, and things that were accepted before are no longer accepted. And if you don't have a death sentence, you're still able to litigate this. You're still able, when the new information comes forward, to do something about it. But with a death sentence,
there is no going back once that's happened, because it is over. Capital Defense Attorney Martin McLean, thank you so much. When we come back, how many dads do you think were thanking feminism on Father's Day yesterday? I'm going to show you why more of us should be.